a lot of people in general that love working in crypto, like not just because it's an interesting topic, but also because it's like almost kind of an interesting lifestyle, and like, yay, like work can finally be fun on multiple levels. EDCON definitely does do a good job of capturing that spirit.
I always like EDCON. I think that these community-oriented, community-organized conferences tend to have a little bit more technical chops than the more sort of centralized, organized conferences, which tend to be a bit more glitzy and glamorous.
Number one, they have awesome speakers. Number two, the organizers are awesome. Pandya is amazing. The people are great. The community is just like growing every year. It's it's amazing and a little scary, and I really want I want the growth to continue.
A lot of the earlier DEF CONs focused on presentations by the Ethereum teams, whereas here there's a combination of like some Ethereum research stuff, some projects. Both conferences are definitely really valuable, and like I do think that Ethereum is at the scale at this point where you just can't have one single conference for the entire year.
The most exciting thing that I've seen at EDCON so far is the focus on developers that we have here. There's a lot of blockchain conferences and Ethereum conferences, and this one particularly has a lot of people that are specifically building on top of the project. So the conversation really focuses around the difficulties today, around building how we can improve it, and the energy, I think, feels different, and I really enjoyed it.
So it really is important that not only do we have this online form, but we also communicate in person, because there's a lot of information that doesn't necessarily get across when you're just using text.
It's an online community, so I interface with a lot of people on forums, on Reddit, on Twitter, and we discuss all these ideas about what we want to build. And a lot of times it's just a string of text that I'm communicating with. And when I come to EDCON, I get to actually meet those people in person, and to make the kind of human-to-human connection in a real way, I think really supplements the online nature of the community really well.
I was always interested in alternative financial systems, and when I discovered Bitcoin and how real it was and how it really had security and how it was working, I got really excited, and so I decided to throw my life into it, back in 2013. Tendermint is a partial solution to the proof-of-work, proof-of-stake problem. It's a component of our proof-of-stake solution. So while it is a consensus algorithm, it by itself is not a blockchain. It doesn't really know what to do with messages or transactions. All it does is it knows how to order them. Cosmos is a network of blockchains. So maybe we can think of Tendermint as an operating system like Windows or Linux, and Cosmos is like the World Wide Web of computers that are running on various operating systems.
Interoperability between blockchains is a really interesting both problem and design space. So there needs to be much better infrastructure for interoperating between blockchains for sure. And it turns out that Plasma is actually part of that interoperability story. So essentially what Plasma allows you to do is it allows you to create these side chains, but you make it so that the trust that you actually have to provide is rooted in the root chain. So in other words, if you trust the root chain is not going to revert, it's not going to be 51% attacked, whatever it is, then you can trust the integrity of all of the assets that are being transacted on that side chain.
I mean, I won't say there's one really big interesting thing that's happening at EDCON, but the more important takeaway is that there's just a lot of people working on interesting little things. People spinning up plasma chains, there's people trying to spin up Casper pools, Ethereum applications for various use cases. There's just, people as young as 16, very actively trying to learn more about it.
I really think that the kind of infrastructure that we have today, it's really shoddy and it's not great, but you can start building things that people actually use. And the important thing is that within 6 months, I want us to have enough that we can continue to be excited about the decentralized decentralization space and actually provide value to people. Because like, yes, there's a lot of potential and there's already been a lot of value that's like created by, having these, non-scalable financial mechanisms that people are deploying to these blockchains. But it would be even cooler if we were able to actually get on with the experiments with like DAOs and, large-scale user-facing applications.
These different heterogeneous chains, they don't even need to be like chains in reality. They can actually be non-blockchain systems. They just need to fulfill a couple of criteria. These chains, or whatever they may be, data structures, can also send each other messages, and they can do so in what we call a trust-free fashion, which means that if any one of them gets reverted such that the message was never sent, then they all get reverted. And that's really critical. So they all have the same security characteristics by necessity. And that's the sort of final thing. There's a shared security between all of these chains. So it means that the chains operate to some degree in lockstep, in unison. But there are certain ways around this lockstep. We can build things called bridges. And we can have privately or sort of independently maintained chains where actually it's only a stub that is maintained in lockstep and the rest of the chain sort of goes on and does its own thing.
Now we can take that and we can use that to create this kind of stream of ordered data that is actually, everyone has consensus on. And so with this kind of one place where we can all agree, I hope that people can build mechanisms which allow us to like work together and solve some of the larger problems.
The thing that I'm most excited for in this ecosystem in the next 6 months is changing the narrative from vision to usefulness. So thinking about, we have a long way to go in terms of building the technology to make the long-term vision come true. But what are the early use cases, the low-hanging fruit that we can be experimenting with today with real users? And I think that's going to be the kind of early product cycle that we can explore.
We believe that the best solution is the simplest solution that gets the job done, that's also the most secure and scalable and efficient. And our solution to this problem is to compose many EVM-powered blockchains, all running on Tendermint consensus, that communicate to each other through IBC on the Cosmos network. So
being able to solve the infrastructure problems to get to high scalability is a key challenge on the research side. For the ecosystem, a related challenge is going to be around incentives, because there's a lot of common infrastructure that needs to be built around scalability, developer tools, security, that don't necessarily have a business model right away. So we've been working with companies and teams within the ecosystem to make sure, how do we make sure that real work is being done in these areas that are necessary, while getting the financial support that can really fuel that. There's efficiencies in bringing, in having a single common custodian as a reference, because there's more tokens and more security on a single hub. So if you have like a very fractured and uniform distribution of blockchains that are connected to each other, and there is no hub, so to speak, or there are too many hubs, what you get is the n-squared problem, where every single blockchain that needs to interoperate with another blockchain, they all need to have their own connection. So you get, if there are n blockchains, you have n-squared number of connections. For newcomers that are joining the space, my advice is usually that all the information is online, and the feedback that I get is, well, where do I know how to get started? And I think that my recommendation is start with the classics. You read the Bitcoin white paper, you read the Ethereum white paper, and then from there just kind of go where your interests tell you to. Some people go straight to the consensus, other people go into scalability, other people go into dApps.
Just the amount of energy and activity and the quality of that energy and activity, I think, is really encouraging.
The ecosystem is robust. People are going off in their own direction, they're doing their own experiments, and that's a good thing.
And to see people that already have an advantage in a given space thinking about what's next for the entire ecosystem and leading the charge was really exciting, and to talk to him face-to-face about that was an amazing opportunity at EDCON.